policy you would change to affect psychedelics, either in Texas, the United States. Brian, you're from Kentucky, so you can choose Kentucky if you want, but I've adopted you as a Texan, so I am clear. Lynette, we'll start with you, and feel free to answer that question, and if you have an additional closing statement, feel free to add that as well.
I think one of the things that I think about a lot is, I suppose, the day-to-day life lost and the actual lives lost, whether that relates to psychedelic medicine or to just mental health care, broadly speaking. And one of the things that I think there have been many, many conversations about in the last couple of years is if and how psychedelic medicines or other things within the FDA that have a breakthrough therapy designation, and very briefly, I don't think we've touched on that, but breakthrough therapy designation just says, so far the data says these are as good or better than what already exists, they're safe, limited side effect profiles, and there's a little use potential, right? So if there are these medicines that the FDA so far is saying looks good, why, if we consider undertreated or untreated mental health concerns to be life-threatening illnesses, just as, say, a cancer diagnosis, why couldn't we explore things like an expanded access or a right to try program in which your physician would apply on a case-by-case basis and say, I am treating my patient Logan, he has tried everything that there is to try and he is still at risk of death. Can we try this thing? I suppose if I had a wand today, that would be the thing that I would explore is, why do we treat mental health different than we treat physical health? They are one and the same. If we can offer experimental interventions for life-threatening illnesses and other aspects of medicine, why can't we in psychiatry, in psychology, and mental health care? I think the other thing that I would say, and I generally always say this just as a closer, is should you be exploring these, you probably know that accessing these in a clinical trial right now is very limited. And the way the FDA requires clinical trials to be set up often is also very challenging to get into, even if you are one of the people who desperately needs to get into it. So if you do seek these things out in other avenues, I would just encourage you really to do your due diligence in how you go about that. Make sure that you are as safe as you can be, that you understand where you are getting the drug, who you are getting it from, that you have really done the preparation work, thought about why you're doing it, what you want to get out of it, what you'll do if it goes well, what you'll do if it doesn't go well. Make sure that you know the risks, because while there is so much great potential, they're also really intense and do have a lot of potential risk. So take care of yourself, be safe, take care of your people, your community, and go forth and do the work.
Thank you, Lynette. Greg.
Yeah, that was great. I think, so at first I was thinking that if I could wave the magic legal wand, or, I would probably do a rescheduling. But then I thought about, so that was my initial, but then I changed it. And I think that what I would do actually is the Schedule 1 aspect of it is not insurmountable. It's a pain in the butt, and it takes time, but it's not insurmountable. But I think the thing that is more sustainable and more important in the long run is for a huge, like let's say $1 billion a year to be appropriated by the federal government specifically for research and development in the psychedelic space. Whether that be like a carve out of NIMH, right, or some other maybe freestanding institution in order to be able to fund people to do the work, right? Not only academics, but also small businesses, right? Pharma companies. I think we need a steady influx of federal funds in order to be able to really develop this and get it to where it needs to be. And up until this point, it's really been mainly due to the graces of several, many generous people, right, that have had the capacity for giving and been able to provide funds to be able to push things forward. But that's not a sustainable solution. We need something that's more centralized, that's more consistent, and that we can lean on far into the future. So I think that would be my parting thought, is to think about what's possible in the future, to be safe, make smart decisions. The other thing too is that every time somebody takes a psychedelic irresponsibly, right, and ends up on the use, that sets things back, right, for the whole movement. So I think what we need to do is we need to respect these compounds and respect the fact that they are powerful. Use them wisely, right? Enroll in a study if you can, but at the very least, think about the fact that your actions will also have long-standing impacts on other people.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greg. Brian?
Man, that's such a big wide open target, it's hard to decide what to be first. You know, public policy systems at the federal, state, and local level are often distorted by the creation of fictitious legal realities which are used to strangulate legitimate reality. I think if I got to do one piece of legislation, I would ask they do three things. Number one, we're going to abolish the DEA, we're going to end the war on drugs, and we are going to pardon every single person who has been federally imprisoned for a non-violent drug offense. The war on drugs has cost more lives than the drugs in which that war has been waged. We can see it in any statistical metric that we would care to utilize. It is a disgrace. It was a manipulated political decision when it was rolled out in 1972, and the sooner it ends, the better off everybody's going to be.
Thank you, Brian. Well, thank you all for joining us here. Brian, thanks for making the trip to Kentucky. Thanks for those thoughtful words, and thank you all for coming out. Thank you again for taking the time. We are all going to help.
Okay, we need to say a few things before everyone takes off. So